Hey y'all, thank you for joining in today. This is Dana Martinez doing an English voiceover of our info session here at the Community Investment Fund of Global, Lyria, and Swansea. So thank y'all again for tuning in today. And as I run through our info session, I want to encourage you to tune into one of our sessions or come to our final session for any questions that come up during this time. We will be hosting some virtual and in-person one-on-ones as well as our final session, and I will talk more about those dates towards the end of the presentation. So today, I want to encourage you to think about if you have a project idea in mind already. And if you're ready to learn more information and are ready to apply, what is it that you need from us? So today I'll be talking a little bit about who the CIF is, what the CIF has funded before, what the CIF funds, how you can apply, and if you're interested in becoming a reviewer, how you can become a reviewer, as well as talk about some of those other dates for our final info sessions and our one-on-ones. So what is the GES CIF? So the origin was or came out of a framework agreement that established the Community Investment Fund to support projects and benefits for the GES neighborhoods in 2015. In the spring of 2021, the GSCIF was officially launched as a formal entity to begin redistributing funds throughout the community. The funds were meant to help shift power and resources back to the community and provided funding for programs and projects that are led by the community to tackle inequalities, promote long-term multi-generational well-being in GES. And so what are some of those things that we fund? So projects can show investment in a block, a street, or anywhere that reaches GES. We encourage applications that have involvement of multiple community members and can reach the community as a whole. Some of these things are health, equity, community voice, the arts, environmental justice, economic opportunity, collective housing projects, and youth and elder engagement. So what are some of those things that we have funded? In the last grant cycle, we were able to fund a lot of things, and some of those we granted to community voice and economic opportunity programs, like Coloratzlan, who uplifted Falling of the Fruit Healing, a summit that was meant to be community-wide day of indigenous healing practices rooted in ancestral knowledge. The Fresca La Fresca Collective was able to contract a local community technology professional to develop websites that became resource hubs, strengthening connectedness within local grocers to provide trainings to build the ability to keep funding within GES. The Green Dot Coalition was able to receive $5,000, where they were able to use that funding to create infrastructure projects with over a quarter of an acre of highway planting beds, where they transformed those by planting and prepping the ground covers along 10 blocks of Gloveville. La Piñata del Aprendizaje was able to support GES families through culturally and linguistically responsive programs that also helped provide school readiness, family care programs, and were able to serve approximately 40 Latina families with young children. Some of the other things that we've been able to fund are health and environmental justice programs. So some of these programs are like Safe Cycle, who use their money for intergenerational bike repair, offering mobile repair at community events, promoted cycling activities, and advocates for safe bike lane infrastructure around GES. The Abolition Garden was able to use their funding to expand a cohort model that encouraged community youth to learn about food injustice, cultural and social change. The GES Tree Care Fellowship Program maintains trees, plants, and cares for trees to address environmental inequities. Alas de Yoga offers indoor and outdoor lessons to neighbors and families that promote mental, emotional, and physical health. Some other things we fund is food justice and neighborhood repairs or neighbor repairs. So the Birdseed Collective was able to use and invest their money into creating food distributions that served over 90 families weekly. Project Angel Heart prepares and delivers home cooked meals to GS neighbors living with severe illnesses. Comunitario provided free cooking and entrepreneurship programs to empower GS neighbors with practical skills, promptly promoting cultural and healthier food choices. Outdoor living made accessible improvements to revitalize yards and porches for those especially with mobility issues to create a safer outdoors. And so, just so y'all know, applications are now open. The deadline is April 6th. And to be able to apply, you go into our website, look up how to apply, and then we'll have an application both in English and in Spanish. So, what kind of things do you need to be able to apply for this? So firstly, you have to have a connection to global Illyria and Swansea. So think about this. Do you as an individual, or does your group or organization have an address in global Illyria, Swansea? How long has your organization or group existed in your neighborhood? How long have you been in the neighborhood? Do you have a legacy relationship to one of the neighborhoods? And do you have multiple generations of your family who have lived in the neighborhoods? Think about how would receiving the grant from the GES have a significant impact to you, your group, or your organization. Other things that you have to think about, and these are not limited to, but preferred registered neighborhood organizations, nonprofits, businesses, community action committees, LLCs, community groups, or again, individuals. This is not limited to any of these things, and we would love to talk to you more if you need some more guidance on this. You have to have a mission and a vision. So start thinking about what are some of the things that you want to achieve with this money, what do you need this money for, and also what is your mission within using this money to distribute it back into the neighborhood. And make an organizational chart or setup. Start thinking about some of those things. What do you need to do to meet your next goal? What are some of those goals that you're waiting to meet? And if there's a timeline for this project, what does that timeline look like? Explain how the people who are most affected by the work get to help in making these decisions, or how will they be involved in this project. This can be you and your neighbors explaining how you are most affected by this. For example, if you decide to do something along, um, food justice, how would you and your neighbors benefit from this, or how are you and your neighbors affected from this? Some other things to think about, and if you're an individual, this does not necessarily apply to you fully, but your organizational budget or your group budget. What is your annual budget? So let's say you are an organization that makes money from other fiscal sponsors, from other grants. This is something that you would fill out. If you're an individual or a small group of people who don't own an organization, have no funding from anywhere else, you would choose the 0 to the $50,000 bracket, and then you would continue on within the questions. These are all questions that we just need in order to make financial decisions and to make choices on how much we're able to provide, specifically organizations. And fiscal sponsorship. Think about if you have a fiscal sponsor. This is typically a nonprofit organization that will offer you their status, or that you can do specific things under without having to have a 501(c)(3) status, and that are engaged in the activities that are related to the work that you're doing. And again, if this is another question you have, like what is a fiscal sponsor? It's typically a nonprofit. Some examples I can throw out are like the GES Coalition, Birdseed Collective, um, Globeville First, and those are just examples. But it would be like if you have something that you want to really do, and the program or the grant falls in line with something that somebody else is already kind of doing, you can always go to them so that they can potentially get the funding and give it to you through their program. So it's like easier for you to be able to receive that money. And again, if you have any more questions, we can talk about this in person or through a one-on-one. So funding levels. For the 2026 grant cycle, we have a total of $90,000 to award, and that will be shared among GES neighbors. Something that is commonly asked, or that we've commonly had come up, is will we split this equally between groups? The answer for that is not necessarily no, but not necessarily yes. More than likely, what ends up happening through these grants is that we give money by the need and the budget of each project. So let's say you're applying for a small project which only needs about $500. That is something that we can provide for you. Not every program needs $10,000. Not every program needs $5,000. Some programs are going to take more money, some programs are going to take less money. So we want to be able to distribute them equitably and not necessarily equally because every program needs something different. And so if you have any questions on that or would like to know more, please ask away. The largest grant will be awarded $10,000, so that still leaves us, let's say if all of the big grants applied for 10,000, that would be able to fulfill 9 total programs. But that's more than likely not going to happen. More than likely we will have over 10 programs funded this cycle, just in the 90,000 that we're able to get. And many of the factors that go into awarding the amounts, again, is the number of grants awarded. The grant review committee makes up funding recommendations as well, and the awards are finalized by the CIF committee at large. So if there's gaps in your budgets, we will help you look through those as well to see what is the best type of funding recommendation we can give you and what is the amount of funding that we can give you for your project. So funding and project budgets. Again, start thinking about your estimated budget for this project. Please include any potential or alternative funding sources outside of the CIF. For example, if you're an organization, what other funding are you getting? And think of any kind of sweat equity sources in your estimated budget. So an upper tier would be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. This will require a site visit, a video call with grant reviewers, and a project management manager. A lower tier is 5,000 or less. So for this, you wouldn't necessarily need a site visit. We wouldn't need to do a video call with grant reviewers or project manager. But what we do need from both of those is a maximum of 2 letters of support from a community member or an organization that supports your proposed project. What does a community member look like? Or what kind of community members are we looking for to sign these letters? This can be someone from your own group as long as they live in the community. This could be someone that maybe the community looks up to, somebody who's been in the community for a long time. This could be maybe an elder. This could be maybe a business. Again, this can be an organization. Whatever you can think of. And if you have any more questions on that, again, feel free to ask us. So the proposal description. Describe the project and how it would benefit the GES communities. What other partnering organizations, local and small businesses, or individual community members will be involved to complete this project? What is your estimated timeline for planning and implementing the project? What is the expected start date of the project? Do you have past experiences doing the work outlined in the proposal? Briefly share the history or activities that you are currently involved in that support your understanding for this project. And some of those things to think about is if you have an expected start date, I will be going over kind of like what the grant review process is, when you will get the funding and things like that. So based off of when we also give out the funding is where I would also think about those start dates as well. We make you also look over an integrity agreement. So by submitting this application to the GES Community Investment Fund Grant Cycle 3, you are also committing to mutual respect and professional engagement with staff, reviewers, committee members, and community volunteers. You are also committed to holding community affirmation and bias support and personal consideration towards all reviewers and fellow applicants, accuracy and truth within the application process as we strive to support that principle. Understanding the greater good of our community requires that we all elevate interactions and seek to form a greater long-term genuine relationships within each other, and agree that the greatest potential of the CIF is to strengthen and celebrate our community regardless of the funding results that your participation has in this process, because it all represents that intention. So some of those office hours that I talked to you about will be Thursday, March 5th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Prodigy Global, Sunday, March 8th from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. virtually, Thursday, March 12th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Valdez Perry Library, Wednesday, March 18th, 2 to 3 p.m. virtually, Sunday, March 22nd, 6 to 7 p.m. virtually, and Tuesday, March 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Valdez Perry Library. And those will be selected dates for one-to-ones. So if you have any more questions, if you need help with the application process, that is something we can also help with. So some of the info sessions that we had have been on February 9th, February 17th. Our next info session will be February 26th at the Swansea Rec Center at 6 p.m. And our last info session will be March 5th at 8 a.m. at Emmanuel's Panaderia. And if you have any more questions, please ask us. If you're not interested in applying for a grant, but are interested in applying for our grant review committee, the application is now open. The applications are also due March 5th. This is going to be for a small group of people that will take approximately 30 hours to fully read applications, score applications, participate in meetings, provide site visits, which includes an orientation and reviewer meetings, and will also be providing meals, a small stipend, and of course, the satisfaction of knowing that you did something in your community that is impactful. So again, this is a grant cycle calendar for this year. In April 6th, applications are due. Initial review to ensure all materials are submitted. Let me make sure. Yep, April 6th. And we will do outreach for sites visits in April as well. In May, we'll finalize and share grant award decisions. And in June, there will be a grantee celebration and GES board member applications open. In June, we will also be fully handing out funding or the grants. So keep an eye out on that. And again, thank you for sticking by with me for this virtual kind of little video that I made for you. Thank you, and reach out to 810-877-2480 or email us at the GES Community Investment Fund at gmail.com for any more questions. Hope to see you soon.